All right, gang, welcome back. Episode 46 of Kane's Local. Joined always by my two cohorts, Cam and Kyle. I'm affectionately known as the old man of this group. And we're here to talk about anything and everything Hurricanes hockey. And this week we'll dive into a pretty good stretch of games that we've gone through here in the last 7 days or so since we came to you guys last. We'll chat in a little bit about Tokarski, the goalie, the backup, his first game, and what we thought coming out of that game, and then really dive into we've been doing decent on the power play, but 5-on-5 scoring is a bit challenge for us at the moment. So what do we see there? And then we'll talk a little trade talk if there's anything. We're getting into that time of year where trades are going to start happening even before the trade deadline. So. And then we'll take a little stab at, what do we think as a group, the playoff structure could, and we'd like to see it look like coming, into the future. And then obviously heading into the Christmas break, we'll talk games heading into the post-Christmas holiday break, a back-to-back against New Jersey. So a lot to get to, a lot to unpack from the week's games with the Hurricanes, but so we'll just dive right into it. And, guys, welcome back. And, hopefully, we got together here just a few days ago as a group and had a fairly chilly family holiday celebration to start off the Christmas week. So how's everybody doing today?
Yeah, no, doing good. So we basically, between travel and parties and everything like that, we've missed a couple of the pregame previews. So we'll get those back to you here soon. And then on top of that, me and Dad are in the same house, and so we both have different backgrounds. I have his normal background, and he's got a whole different one. I like the Christmas tree in the background though, so
Yeah, there you go.
looks good.
Yeah, I try to be a little
Yeah,
festive
exactly.
today.
It's a good setup. So, but no, yeah, been good being home.
Yeah, no, nothing much different here. We were, like you said, we were together over the weekend, and unfortunately, I got work the whole week, so outside of Wednesday. So yeah, I've been here working today, so that's my fun for this week. Is at least I get one day off.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So, well, I guess let's dive right into it. I mean, Kane's last 4 games, 3-1. So not a bad stretch for him. So we'll talk about the good, the bad. I thought Columbus. We played them. Was it a Sunday?
Yep, Sunday game.
We came to last Saturday, but Sunday. I thought that was Tokarski's first game. I thought he looked really well. I think he settled right in. He battled. He made some early saves that really got him into the game, and I think that was the biggest thing to settle the team down too, because they knew he was in the game, and he came to play. So I thought it was a good first effort for him.
Yeah, I mean, dive right into Tokarski there, but he looked calm and he looked just poised in the net, and that's what Carolina needs out of the backup. We don't need miraculous efforts. We don't need crazy off the wall saves. We get enough of that out of Kochetkov. We just need somebody steady that's willing to ride the ship, get us some wins. It doesn't have to be the most pretty wins, but get us wins when we need them, and allow Kochetkov to have those break times to where he's not ragging himself to kind of brittle end and he's getting injured from that fact. And it just gives a little bit more confidence to the whole team. And I think, in a very small sample size of the single game, I really liked Tokarski's effort. And I thought, that's exactly what Carolina needs. I was hoping to get that out of Martin because I think Martin's a good guy, but I mean, maybe out of the tandem we can kind of get a combined effort. But from what I've seen, I really like Tokarski's game. He's a battler, so that's all you need out of a goalie. He's just somebody that's willing to at least try.
So Cam, how do you like the guys in front of him? I mean, I thought they came to play. Quite honestly, that was a good game for them.
Yeah, it was, and I think because you could tell. I mean, even with Tokarski, you could tell he's played before. Like, he's played long stretches in the NHL before. I like Martin to an extent, but whenever he's in the net, it always feels like he's like overly jumpy or like really like kind of on edge. Whereas Tokarski was kind of calm, cool, and collected. most of the time. So it was good from him. And then, like you said, the guys in front of him played really well too, which makes his job a lot easier. So, but yeah, no, he looked good. He looks more like a backup than
Mhm.
Martin did, for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that was one of the things that you noticed right away. I mean, we were sitting there. I mean, we went to the game, and you could see early on he had to make a couple of saves early, and really settled him into the game. And you could tell he's a battler. I mean, he just battles the puck all the time. He doesn't. I mean, he's not technically, he's not as technical
He's
as
got an old
maybe
school
a Martin
style to
is.
him because I mean, he's in
Yeah,
his mid-30s, I wanna say. I think he's, like, 33 or
yeah,
34 now, so he definitely has a little bit of that older style, almost Marc-Andre Fleury-esque
hmm
style to where nothing's very it doesn't look smooth, but it works.
hmm yeah. No, he attacks the puck, he attacks the play. And, that was a really exciting part to watch because you could really see it allow the guys in front of him to settle in and play. And I think, I mean, again, I don't want to take anything away from Columbus. I mean, Columbus got some elite players, but at the same time, I think top to bottom, I think we controlled the play, for the most part. But I mean, again, but he had to make those certain saves at a certain time to keep the momentum pushing in the right direction. So, that was a really exciting thing to see from him. And, hopefully we see him get a few more starts here because you'd hate to you run the kid too much longer, and and run him into a injury scenario that we don't really want to get our hands
I
around
I
at
suspect
this
we
point in the
see him
season.
tonight. By the way, we are recording this at about 5 o'clock on Monday night, so you guys will hear this Tuesday. So we will not have updates on the Nashville game. I'm hoping Carolina wins. It looks like if the way Nashville's playing, the way we're playing, we should come out on the good end. But I think we see Tokarski tonight, so I think that this is going to give Kochek up basically until Friday in order to kind of rest up because we go right
Mhm.
into another back to back with the Devils then. But yeah, outside of that, I thought in that Columbus game, Carolina looked good in front of them. I thought it was a way better effort than we had seen. Still not a complete 60 minutes. But I felt like guys definitely stepped up. I thought Aho had a good game. I thought Svetch had a good game. That Stahl, Martinook, and Carrier line has been our best line all week. Just
They're
hands
crazy.
down. And like I said, like the effort from them, and kind of rolling right into the New Jersey or New York game as well too with the Islanders. Really felt like it was a complete effort. That was probably the closest to a complete effort we've seen all year. Granted, still had probably one or two too many mistakes. I mean, I think they had 5 or 6 grade A scoring chances, and
Mhm.
Kochetkov was there for all of them. So I mean, like I said, I like the beginning half of Carolina's week a lot, and I feel like we're on the verge of going back to where we started the season. I think the team's kind of headed there as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, they look good. Like you said, I mean, you hope that they can keep the momentum that they kind of were building in the Rangers game for sure. I mean, the first period, yeah, I mean, even Rod said he was like, man, it's just, 30 seconds in or whatever it was. It's like, really? Like, already? They get a tip in. And then, yeah, I mean, after that, though, I didn't see the game in full. I think I saw bits and pieces of like the second and the third period. But the second period, I saw quite a bit of. But yeah, I mean, they clearly look like the better team in the second period.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and it's just about building on, even if it's one period, okay, build on that period. Like, even if the third was a little bit of dip, it's like, okay, but, just, 20 in-game minutes ago, we were stomping this team that was coming into the season as one of the favorites to be the President's Cup winner again. So,
Mhm.
it's one of those where you just, you keep trying to build off of that, and hopefully they can build off of that against a Nashville team that's, found themselves struggling quite a bit, especially this early part of the season.
Yeah, I think the other thing too uh, you know, I think all 4 games, we did lose the game in Washington. And I really you can really go back and look, and we've I know we've talked about this at nauseum, it seems like, but, you know, is that soft goal. And I think, that was the difference maker in the Washington game. And look, the Washington is legit. There's nothing bad about that team. They're strong, they're big, they're physical. I mean, that mutant they got on the front
That
end,
Potas,
that
man, he's an animal.
Potris or
Protus.
POTUS or, but man, he is an absolute animal. I mean, he's a huge dude and he can skate, he can stick handle. I mean, there's nothing bad about his game, and then McMichael's benefiting from it. That line was absolutely, they were dominant because they're so heavy and they're so big. And I think that was the difference in the Washington game. Kochetkov lets up. We had a little bit of momentum. We were pushing hard, and then he lets up that soft goal on transition, which has been our weak spot all year. We've said it. I think all three of us have said it 100 million times. It seems like, but that was the one goal that created and deflated the momentum for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, it's always tough to, like, in that situation to give. And I know I'm a big Kochetkov believer. If you haven't heard me from the past 20 episodes, but it's hard to put that one solely on him because we're in the middle of the third period and it's still a 1-0 game. It's just it's one of those things that there are goalies in the NHL that in that 1-0 game, and every goalie knows, like, hey, the guy across the way is clearly not giving anything up. I can't allow a goal to get past me because we might only get one. So to give us a chance at winning the game, I have to be perfect. But it's like, at the same time, as a goalie, you've been pretty much stellar since the first goal went in. And it's tough to be 100% focused the entire time, the entire game. You're going to have your moments. And then with the added pressure of you're not getting any offense going on the other end, it amplifies kind of the pressure that's on him. And I don't know. I feel like I'm waffling. I had a train of thought, completely lost it. But
yeah, that's okay.
I get that he let up the soft goal and he's had the issues in the past of doing it. I thought this week, outside of the one goal, I mean, name another goal that we would say was a soft one.
I agree. I agree. But what I guess the point is that was a goal that created and trained. I mean, I'm not going to say we would have won the game, but we were pushing. We had a little bit of push, and then boom, it went in, and it was like, holy crap. I mean, and I'm not saying the team wasn't scoring in front of them. That was obvious, but again, that goes back to Lindgren played out of his mind.
100%.
I mean, he made some good saves. I mean, and so we almost got all marked in that game, like we did against Ottawa, where we were getting chances. We just weren't burying them.
Sorry, Cam, I'm going to push it right over to you right after this. I just wanted to add this one point. We had chances. The issue we are running into, and we're going to push onto this after we kind of wrap up the games, is we don't have any interior pressure. We're one and dones with a lot of our chances. It's one shot and then out. And you look at the teams like Florida that rarely get shut out. They have 2-3 opportunities at every single shot. It seems like there's at least a rebound or two. But I mean, we'll push over to that later. But Cam, what did you see out of that Washington game? Because it felt like Carolina was in the game. It's just they couldn't get anything past Lindgren.
Yeah, I mean they were in the game the whole time. But yeah, it's just one of those where a couple of chances that guys should be more clinical on for sure, but. Yeah, Lindgren played out of his mind, so he played really well. He deserved to win. Like, he was the better goalie, I mean, in that game for sure. And then, and just to, hop off that point is and then Kochetkov goes into New York and outplays Shesterkin. So it's, it's a game by game kind of thing. Like, each game you just have to focus on trying to be better than the other guy. And you don't know what the other guy's going to bring. That other guy could let in 3 goals in the first 5 minutes of the game, and then you're like, oh, okay, my job's pretty easy tonight. If I let in 2, no big deal because we still win the game.
Yeah, I just got to manage it, basically.
I just got to manage. It's being the difference between being a game manager and being a guy that can take over a game.
A game breaker,
and be the game breaker, yeah. So as long as he can kind of consistently do that, then, I think he'll be fine for sure. I mean, he showed why. If he consistently plays like he did in New York, that's a starting goalie.
Oh,
100%.
Yeah, that was the
so. But again, that's the consistency just has to keep building. And and to go back a little bit to the Washington game, I mean, they just the Canes pushed and they played well for most of the game and then let up that second one, and then the foot let off the gas, and then the third one went in, and it's, then it's a 3-0 game with 5 minutes left. So they get one back at the end, but, just not enough. They really needed to get, if they really wanted to have a chance, I think if they tie at 1-1 to start the third, I think Kochetkov doesn't let that goal in. I
Yeah.
think it's a mental thing. I think Kochetkov's kind of gripping the stick a little too hard. Like, I really can't let this go in, and it gets past him. So I think that's part of it too.
That's like the biggest mental hurdle for any player, right? Like that
Yeah.
that pressure cooker situation where it's like, especially in a goalie, I couldn't imagine being a goalie in that situation. Like, the guy on the other end's having an absolute stellar game, and if you let one in, like the game's over.
The game's over, yeah.
Like that's such a crappy feeling. So I can't imagine that level of pressure. But the fact that, exactly, Cam. The fact that he bounces back, and not only does he bounce back, he lets up a goal, the first shot of the game. And a little bit more immature Kochetkov, that would have been night over. Like he probably would have been bounced in the first period, after letting up 3 or 4 goals, and now all of a sudden it's like, he's able to regather his sense of mind, and he goes back and he doesn't let up another one. And Shesterkin wasn't able to out goalie Kochetkov. So it's just like, if we weren't seeing those performances, I would be a lot more skeptical in him. But we do see those performances, and it seems like every time he plays Shesterkin, he seems to be getting the better end of the bargain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, I know. I just, like I said, I know I'm pushing on him pretty hard, but he's going to get there. And I think,
those goals
we've
have to
talked
be
about it.
eradicated 100%.
It needs to go away from his game. And I think the focus for him is, and look, I'm not a goalie. I've never played goalie. But you have to just worry about the next shift. You can't think about what's happened. You can't think about what the other guy's doing. It's obvious. It's going to be obvious. You know what's happening at the other end. You just have to do your thing and then stay in your head and stay focused. And I think that's the biggest thing for him. And again, he's still a young
I was going to say that
and
it's so much easier said than done too. Especially when
no,
you're in the
I get
battle.
it. I do. I get it. But I think at the same time though, this is the NHL
100%.
and he's going to get there. But I really think that, that he needs a guy behind him that is going to teach him that at a really high level and understand how to do that, because it's not something that you're just born with. You're taught how to do that, and there's skills that you can learn to do that. And I think he's getting there for sure, no doubt. But for him to reach that number one level and play, like I said, I agree with Cam. I think the Rangers game, he was absolutely stellar.
He was
I mean, I think Kyle,
I
you
watched
and I
the
went to
highlights and I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah. I mean, it was like they had 23 shots, and I think 9 or 10 of them were classified as grade A.
10 grade A chances out of 23 shots.
That's bananas.
It's 1/3 of the shots he's facing it.
Yeah. So
it's closer to half.
Yeah, we're not gonna jump on him too hard, but I want to see that come out of his game, and I think once he does that, man, I tell you, he is absolutely the real deal. There's no doubt in my mind. And again, who knows if it can't come out of his game, does he become the real deal? I mean, I guess that's the long-term question. Can you rely on him?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be tough if you can't do it. That's going to be a tough sell long-term for him as a Hurricane, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. But outside of that, anyway, I want to give praise to the Stahl line. Stahl, Carrier, and Martin have been lights out all week. I thought they were our best line in every single game. I don't know about you guys, but every time that I feel like they move, I know one game started with Svetch with Stahl and Martinuk, or it was a period or something like that. Just keep those 3 guys together. I get it. They might go through cold patches where they're not scoring, but we don't need. They shouldn't be the ones that we're relying on for all of our goals. Right? That's a whole different issue, and we can get to that here in a second. But man, that Stahl line with Carrier and Martinuk, I used to hate this line combination of like the three guys that couldn't score together, because it was like I didn't see the value in it. But then when you go into games like a New York, where yes, the New York Rangers are struggling, they still have a lot of good firepower. And whenever Stahl's on the ice, it's like they're stuck in their own zone, or the offensive team's stuck in their own zone the entire shift. So whoever it is, it doesn't matter if it's Connor. I mean, maybe Connor McDavid, but like majority of the players, he's hemming in their own zone, and that whole line is just so good. And I love Carrier's game. I think he was the best addition we made to this team.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's a perfect segue into sort of the next topic is our 5-on-5 scoring. I think it's really, I think we can all agree that it's really struggled. Our power play is starting to look a little bit better, looking more like early season form. But even still, that is struggling a little bit with, there's the movement, puck possession and stagnant, and use every other word that you want for standing around. But 5-on-5, we're really, really just struggling. And I think it really goes back to kind of what you said is, we're a team of puck pressure. We get in on the forecheck, and when we don't do that, I think teams so easily transition out of their own zone against us sometimes. And I think that Stahl line has been absolutely outstanding. I thought Svechnikov over the last 3-4 games maybe has gotten back to his
It's one of the
game.
best stretches of hockey I've seen out of him in a while. I know the
Yeah.
points might
Yeah.
not be following it, but
Consistent.
just like how he's playing the game, that's what we want to see out of Andre. But
Yeah, no, I agree.
the one thing I want to make on the 5-on-5 is the reason why that line also being one of our best offensive producers this whole week is because if you watch those three guys play, where do they play the majority of the shift? Yeah, it's along the boards and they're cycling it, but when it goes to the net, where are all three of those guys? They're right in front of the net. They're
Mhm.
right there, ready to bang anything home. Look at the goal last night yesterday against the Rangers. I mean, Carrier just stood in front of the net. It hits off of something, goes by his foot. Oh no, it hits the post. He kicks it over and blades it in. But guess what? Three of our other lines aren't willing to go to that area, and that's why we're struggling 5-on-5. That's why that line is the only one producing 5-on-5 right now, is because you have to get to the dirty areas, especially against
Yep.
good teams. Good teams are going to take away that. They're going to make it hard for you to get there. New York kind of, like I said, reeling really right now, and I lost again today. So they're just in a bad shape right now. But
Got run over by the Devils
yes,
today.
Yeah, it wasn't even close.
But
No, I watched
I mean,
pretty
it
much the whole game. It was
didn't
not
look like
close.
they wanted to be
No.
out there, quite honestly.
no, it's
The third
it's an
period, they might
absolute
as well have
barn
fucked it
fest
up.
there. But again,
Yeah.
they have good players, and again, it's hard to judge because the Rangers are so bad right now. But I like the pressure we had for the entirety of that game. We are so much a perimeter team when it comes to offensive chances that we're such a one and done. It's one shot on goal, and if that shot doesn't beat the goalie, then we're out of the zone going the other way. When you look at go watch Florida play, there's a reason they won the cup last year. Every single guy, watch Vegas the year before. They're a great example of it. Every single guy's in front of the net. All three forwards are in front of the net. Like,
Yeah.
you got to be there. That's where the goals are.
Yeah, I know, and I think the other thing too, I don't know if you guys noticed from the game, but Svetch is going to the net. I mean, he's power moves.
One
He
of our
goes.
only.
He instead of taking a shot or carrying around the perimeter, he takes one step to the middle, and he goes into the net, gets into the front, and it's just like that's exactly what we need from him and from everybody else. Quite honestly, get in there, get run over, and get in the goalie's grill in his area, and because until we start doing that, we're going to see this rinse and repeat, up and down kind of roller coaster of emotion, so to speak, when it comes to how the Canes are playing. Sometimes it looks like, oh my God, these guys could win the Stanley Cup. And then other times it looks like, oh my God, I don't think we could finish last. There, and I think that it's crazy. It's like one extreme to another. It's like bipolar syndrome with these guys sometimes. So we'll see. But I think Svetch is. I mean, Stahl yesterday was, I thought, one of our best players, if not the best player. The way he played, and the way he attacked the zone and face-off dot. So I loved everything about his game. And guys are coming around, and like I said, I think Svetch has had a really good stretch.
Yeah, and I think when he gets the biggest thing too is like you said with the power move, like when you get that step on a defenseman, it's over. Like you can't as a defenseman, if he cuts in hard enough, not even like, trying to almost peel out of the backside of it and swing your stick around to knock the puck because he's driving, so you could try and knock the puck away from him. Even then, he's already 2 steps up, so you're hitting him in the skates and you're tripping him.
Yeah.
Like, so if he utilizes that more, as we see, he's gonna either get a grade A or draw a penalty, and that's what it feels like he's been doing. He draws a lot of penalties too. He takes some for sure. Like, don't get me wrong, he's still
Yeah.
I think he's our leading penalty guy at this point.
I
But so he struggles with that for sure. The ozone penalties kill me. I hate when he takes those.
I
But
know.
again, if he's producing on the front end, if he's generating chances, then
Mhm.
I'll live with a penalty a game
He
in the ozone.
he
from
does
him,
have a
so.
little bit of the Marchand syndrome where I feel like they kind of are looking for it now.
I mean, maybe a little bit, but I mean, some of those are so obvious. You're like, how do you not call that?
100%.
That's those are the ones that kill me, where he just two hands a guy in the back, or he just blatantly, basically corkscrews a guy, puts his stick between his legs, and just turns him.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of stuff drives me a little crazy. But outside of
Yeah,
that, again, if he's
and again,
generating the chances, I'm okay with the
he's
penalty.
been in the league long enough to develop and understand that get team. It's a team first thing. Sometimes he
That kills you
forgets that.
sometimes. Yeah. You have
Sometimes
some
he forgets that.
momentum. You get a penalty in the first 5 minutes in an ozone pressure situation. You get scored
Yeah.
on. That changes the entire game
Mhm.
for some teams.
Yeah.
So.
So the other thing too, what in the hell's happened to Seth Jarvis? I mean, his game has like gone into the toilet, it seems like, and
I think
he's not skating.
yeah.
There's no pressure. It's not the Seth Jarvis from a week ago, even. So, I mean, where the hell has he gone?
I mean, for me, it's him and Aho struggling together.
Yeah.
'Cause they're on the same line, and they haven't really been broken up in the last 2 weeks. So I think him and Aho are kind of in the throes of it right now. They're both kind of scratching and clawing for points, it feels like. Aho with the empty netter, and then Jarvis with the goal in Washington. That really doesn't mean a whole lot. So at this point, but at the time maybe. But yeah, it's one of those you don't really know you're in it until you're in it, and then it's like, okay,
Mhm.
I got to get kind of my way out of it. Again, I was never a big point guy, so I don't know if I can say like, when you're in the throes of it, do this or that or whatever, but they'll figure it out. I'm not really that worried.
Oh,
They're
but
winning games. Right now, it's the middle of the season. It's this mid-season stretch from really Thanksgiving until pretty much the All-Star break. That's a grind. It's probably the worst part of the season just because guys are dealing with stuff. There's a lot of family stuff going on where they're distracted off the ice about other stuff going on around the holidays. So, but again, they'll figure it out. As long as they're getting wins, they're getting wins. That's all that matters at this point. We can worry about them getting hot later in the season. Now, if it's, April 15th and their last game of the year and, Jarvis is, still hung up in the
MIA.
rafters, then we'll have a different conversation. But for now, I'm not really that worried about it.
No, I very much agree with Cam in that situation. There is a lot going on, but it feels like ever since getting named to Team Canada, his game has taken a very kind of it almost feels like it's no longer a prove it kind of mentality where he had the chip on his shoulder, always was kind of told he was too small, wasn't sure he was going to make the team, kind of all that kind of excess. And now it's like maybe, I don't know. I don't want to
Kinda
say
reminds me
because
of his
I
sophomore
don't know,
season,
and there's
his
a lot
second
of
year.
other things that it could be. I just feel like ever since getting named to Team Canada, he has played a lot more like I expect Natchez to play, where it's very perimeter based. It's not a hard forecheck. It's kind of
Mhm.
hit or miss on whether or not he's going to actually put applicable pressure onto a player, or if it's just going to be kind of a flyby. So I haven't liked how he's played, and I remember yesterday we were talking, or because me and you were watching the game together, Dad, and we said it like 5 or 6 times. It's like, what is Jarvis doing? Like, what's going on? He just hasn't looked himself 100%. One last thing on that Rangers game, I completely forgot to bring it up when we were talking about it. Pyotr Kochetkov becomes the second player all time to be the leading point getter in a game. He had 2 points, and everybody else on the ice had 1 point.
Do you know who the other guy is, Cam? Another hurricane.
I think was it Brasso?
Yeah.
It was Tom Barrasso. Yeah.
He had 2
Yeah,
points and a
so
2-0 win, I think. But I thought that was so cool. I was like, and he's like the second Canes goalie all time to do it.
yeah, and he led all players in points yesterday, I
Yeah,
believe.
that's what
Yeah, he
that's
had
what
2
that
points.
stat was.
Everybody else had 1. So,
That is crazy.
I mean,
You know,
And he didn't get
that's
it.
like
How
but
do you not
again,
get
that's what
a
happens,
first 3-star
you know.
of the night?
well, he's in New York.
He's
so,
in New York. What do you
know,
expect?
They had to
I mean, what
they
do you
had to give it
expect?
to players. Like they gave it to, I think it was
Mhm.
like Jordan Stahl, Carrier, and Aho or something like that. Got the 3 stars.
They did it in the arena, though?
Yeah, they announced the 3 stars. The players don't come out, but they announced the 3 stars.
Really?
Oh, I thought they would have given it to the hot dog cart
I
hanging
really
outside
too, but
before
I
they gave it to
guess
the Canes guy.
really New York's kind of thinks a lot of their team to not give anybody a star.
I mean, they get booed out of the building every night now. So
Who
it
are
really
you
doesn't
going to give
matter.
a star on that team after the game?
Yeah,
yeah, no, I
Think when
could.
when
Yeah, I
we were in
know.
the dog days and Carolina got trounced, Carolina didn't get a star of the game. It was always the 3 other players on the other team that just absolutely. I remember
Yeah.
a game where Anaheim we lost 6-1. It was Getzlaf, Perry, and who was another
probably
Penner.
their goalie.
It was Getzlaf, Perry, and Penner were the 3 stars of the night, and they had like I think Getzlaf had like 4 points or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think, like I said, I think it was a good week. It was a good week for the Canes. I think, they still got some work to do. Really the big guys have to get going again.
For sure.
We just don't have that scoring punch. We can rely on the good thing is, if you want to look at a positive from this, is our depth scoring is there. So that's the critical component long term when you get down into the dog days of summer, so to speak, with a playoff stretch, is that when you get guys like Martinook scoring, like guys like Carrier scoring, and by the way, Kyle, I 1,000,000% agree with you. Carrier was, I thought Gostisbehere was, but I think Carrier is, and will be the best signing of
I
the
think he's got
offseason.
the biggest impact. Now, granted,
Yeah.
it's hard to say because Ghost, what he's done to our
Yeah.
power play has
I
been
was about to say, he has a lot
immaculate.
of points.
Like he has transformed our power play significantly.
It's literally the power. Like he is the power play
100%.
at this point.
100%. I think for a long stretch playoff run, they're both going to be super impactful. But what Carrier does on all kind of 3 sides of the or 2 sides of the pucks, what he does on both sides of the puck. Good God, I can't talk to him. What he does offensively and defensively, it's hard to replicate. And I think I don't know if he has yet, but I'm pretty sure he's done penalty killing before. I think that's the only other thing that Rod could work him into the rotation there if he's not already in. I can't remember seeing him. I know Robinson's in the rotation now. But I mean, that would just be one more tool in his belt. But I love what he brings to our team because it's a little bit of piss and vinegar, and we need a little bit of that.
Yeah, the other thing too, I'll add one more comment to him. No, I know we're getting long in the tooth here, but I think the one thing is you can put him on any line, and that's the beauty part of the player like that. Is you put him with anybody. I mean, he played 4th line minutes, he played 3rd line. You could put him up with Aho right now. I swear, if you put him with Aho, it'll bring Aho out of his funk. Don't know if it will, but like I said, he's a guy that makes a line better just because of his pure work ethic. So, we'll see what happens, but you never know. I don't think it won't do it, but he'd make Aho better. I'm going to stamp that one. I'm going to say, go for it, Rod.
Yeah.
Put Carrier up on the first line.
Better Martinook, I think.
So anyway, we're I guess we're just a little bit past our 30-minute mark. So we'll step off and head into the second half of the show, and we'll talk a little bit. What are you guys thinking? Kyle, you want to get into maybe some trade rumors, trade talks, or what do we need? What are we missing? Or do we want to head off into we had a long discussion on playoff format this morning, and how we think it'll make.
We'll talk about that, and then if we have time, we'll go to the trade rumors. But Cam, me and Dad were discussing earlier, if we were to change how the NHL playoffs went, what changes would we want to see? Dad had an interesting one that was based off of NASCAR, but I can start off with mine. I was saying that I would be, and this is less about kind of the playoff formatting, I guess, and more about how I want the season to go. First of all, I feel like there's probably too many games are right now with, I think the season's a little too long. But if we were going to keep it at 82 games, I would like to play the West teams only one time a season. So I don't care, trade off every year who's at home, and make it every other year. So 1 year we're in Edmonton, 1 year they're here. But I don't care to see them. Let's see that. Let's make it a true like kind of two conference like league. Either that or let's completely get rid of the divisions. I don't know what the point of them is, and this is kind of where I'm going to this. The other team in the conference, so for us it would be the Atlantic, play them 3 times a season. So twice at home 1 year, once on the road 1 year, and then vice versa the following year. And then for the Metro division or your actual in-division games, I want to play each team 6 times a season. I just feel like that would produce so much more, like so many better rivalries. It would induce better gameplay, I think, throughout the season, because now all of a sudden, a majority of your games in the year, basically half of them are going to be swing points. It's going to be 4-point games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to be like, okay, well, now I have to be good every night, basically. It's not it just makes, I feel like, every game a little bit more impactful, because I fear what's happening with the NBA with their ratings going down could happen to the NHL at some point, where it's, guys are taking breathers because the regular season really doesn't matter. Like that's how certain players feel. Like I just, it's either shorten the season, or I think we need to change it to where the regular season games are way more impactful than they can be at certain points this year. Because like the game against Nashville tonight, we could use the 2 points. It's not going to make a difference in April. Maybe it does, and maybe I'm talking out of my ass here, but it's not. Is it really going to make that big of a difference come April time? Are we going to remember the Nashville game on December 23rd was the game that it changed? No. But, you can go back and look at a 4-point swing in the Metro division and be like, that was a massive 4-point swing. All of a sudden we were down fucking 8 points instead of just, up by or down by 2. Like, it was a crazy swing. But I don't know. I'll pass it over to you for your thoughts there, Cam, because Dad kind of gave me his this morning, but I'll let him reiterate it as well, too.
Yeah, no, Dad, you can reiterate yours.
Yeah, and, it's sort of the way it was. Probably, before the current platform, kind of took effect. So, I do like it. I think it builds that animosity. It builds that rivalry. It builds all the almost a playoff like environment throughout the whole season. So I don't dislike it. I think it's been done before. So I think that's the only thing that would be a bit of a challenge going forward, is if they did do that. It's sort of we've been there and you all wanted a change, so we change it to this. So, but I do like the rivalry aspect of it. I do like that it builds that animosity through the season. If you're going to play a team like Tampa 6 times, or or not Tampa, but like the Capitals 6 times, you're going to play the Penguins 6 times. And,
I mean, those,
so I think those would be good. But I think from a branding perspective, obviously the NHL is not going to do it.
They want all the superstars in every city every year.
Right. That's what they're doing. So it's all it's about at the moment. So, but anyway, so my thing is that I'm cool with it. But I don't think they're going there because of that reason. But I do like the rivalry it builds.
So I like it for the rivalry aspect of it, for sure. The only kind of thing I have with it is specifically, if we go back to the COVID season, they had just the Canadian teams in one division. That's all they played the whole year. Granted, one of those teams made it to the Cup final somehow. Montreal made it to the final.
But the rest of the teams
one
of the greatest goalies ever to exist.
Bad. It was basically Montreal was warming up all season to play in the playoffs. That's kind of what it felt like. So that's the only gripe I would have, is that you really wouldn't know where you're truly at against other teams if you only play them once a year, especially on the West side, because it's really hard to compare yourself in just one game, because it could go either way. One team could show up, one team couldn't. But if you have a 2-game span, if a team goes 2-0 and they know how to beat them and they've seen them twice, I think it gives an advantage to that team specifically. So that would be the only thing I had is just that season. And then, yeah, the ratings thing. Every team, every team in the NHL wants McDavid in their arena once every year.
Yeah, that's why they
for
have
the
it set
ratings.
this
So
way.
they're not going to change it. It's interesting, but I don't think they're going to end up changing it. And I had texted this to you guys, I think maybe a week or two ago, but it was this concept I saw on Twitter called the evil playoffs.
The evil plan.
And it's basically the last 8 teams. So the bottom, the cellar 8 teams in the NHL, they have a playoff, and then the winner gets the first overall pick in the draft. I think that would be amazing. You talk about ratings, and it doesn't have to be a 7-game series. It can be a 3-game series, a 5. It doesn't have to be a 7. But playing for getting that, plus the players will get paid more too. Like they'll end up getting benefits for the teams, and the owners will love it because they're like, hey, we get more money coming into us. We can sell more tickets, that kind of thing. So
I
think that's a great idea. And being the prize, like the first overall pick. Granted, if the first overall pick that year stinks, that thing's gonna stink too. But if you're looking at a Celebrini kind of player that can change an organization, I mean, that would be awesome. And then there'd be more games to watch too.
So my only kind of counterpoint to that one is if a team like New York, who probably don't deserve to get another first overall pick, were to miss playoffs this year, and then all of a sudden they're the best team in the evil bracket. So then you just you're benefiting from being a good team that just barely made it or didn't make it. And then all of a sudden you can go win the evil bracket, grab another first overall pick, and then you're in the clear.
Yeah, but that's hoping you win 3 series. You have to be that team for 3. It's not a one and done. It would be like a 3-game series against a team. So I think doing that, the only problem that we could run into is if it starts when the regular playoffs start. I mean, you're talking about a ton of games being played every day. So that could kind of water it down a little bit. But think about if they started that evil playoffs or whatever,
right after the playoffs,
or in the conference final, when on those off days that
there's so much gap time.
There's so much gap time at the end between the conference final and the final.
Especially if you're only doing 3-game series.
You put it like that 2-week, 3-week period. You have, even best of 3 playoffs and either side. I mean, they could get it done in probably a month if they're good at it, which is about the time it takes for the conference finals to the cup final. Game 7 or whatever it goes to usually ends. So, I don't know. I think because that period is kind of weird. Even in the cup final, if you don't have a team in it, you're kind of like, man, it feels like it's forever since I've watched a game, and it's only been a day or two. You're not sitting there anticipating the next game, and then if you miss one game, you haven't seen a game in over a week. So
no, and to hop on that, Cam, I'll give you my 2 cents on what I think the playoff changes would be, and I'm sort of. I think it would be to keep everybody motivated because Kyle made a comment earlier, and I was like, yeah, it probably makes a lot of sense that the urgency of games to win in say December or January, it's not as high as it is, as you get later into the season. Is to almost have it to where you get to say a date like I'll use February 1st as an example, is you get to a date like that, and all of a sudden, you lock into a playoff spot, or you get a team like the 1 seed or the 2 seed, they lock into the playoff spot, but at the end of it, the rest of the games, they dictate your seeding, whether you get home ice or not. And then throughout, and then what you do is the last, either the 3 seed and down, they're fighting for those last 3 spots. And then instead of doing the wild card, have a play-in series, have a 3-game series about say the last, the 4 teams that are outside of the playoff, they play a 3-game set, and make it a 3-game set. Don't make it a 5-game set or a 7-game set, just to play in, to make it into become that last wild card spot. I just think it adds something it makes the early season points more important than a team that makes a late push in the second half of the season. And I think it adds to the playoff feel all the way throughout the season. So, I don't know how you'd manage that, how it would work, and if it would even fly. But there's got to be a way to do it. I mean, and it did. I mean, they did it in NASCAR. I mean, they basically said, okay, you get to a certain point of the season, then you're locked in. If you won a race, you're locked in. If you didn't do this, you're locked in. And then as you go through progressively, you get we teams out, and sort of almost like they created their own playoffs. So I mean, I don't know if it'll work, but I think it would make the entirety of the season more important than just say the last 2 months or 2.5 month push that team seems to go on to get into or push towards a playoff spot. So that's just my thing.
The only
I
thing
think my only.
sorry, Cameron, go
Yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I already went.
I was gonna
so.
say the only dilemma I kind of have with that slash the reason why the NHL is probably in a pretty good spot right now is because of the amount of parity in the league. It's you get punished if you don't have a good start to the season because the rest of your season you have to be absolutely lights out for the entirety of it. And teams that have look at Vancouver last year. Vancouver had an unbelievable start to their season, and then they went ice cold for like 2 months straight. Where I think they won like 4 games through 2 months or something like that. But because of they started the season like 22-3-4 or something like that. But because of that stretch of games, they put themselves into a crazy spot to where even though they had a terrible I think it was like a month and a half stretch, even though it was the worst month and a half stretch, they allowed themselves to still make playoffs. So I think it's hard to say that the NHL playoffs, like kind of their setup isn't in a good spot. I just feel like there is going to come a time where there might not be as much parity in the league, especially as the salary cap continues to rise. And there's going to be a point where it rises past what certain teams can spend, no matter what they try and do. They can try and spend all their money, but they only are going to bring in so much money before the salary cap exceeds it. Toronto's going to be able to go until they can go no further. $2 billion they would spend on a team if they could, but other teams can't spend $2 billion. But if the salary cap goes all the way up there, then we're going to have to find a way to transition this to a point where it's like these middle games matter, because that's what's happening in the NBA is the same teams are the best teams every year, it feels like, or the same group of teams are the best teams every year. And they can just be crap for the half of the year. And then the second half of the year, they can win a couple games and then they're in the playoffs because every other team stinks. It's just, it creates such a dry atmosphere.
Yeah. Well, how about you do this then? How about you just take and it's kind of like we used to. I'll go back to my racing days, but how about you do this? You have a sort of 8 teams get into the playoffs. Okay, so this will push you to, almost like they do the lottery, for the draft. I mean, you push and push to get to the playoffs. So the top 8 teams, okay. You did your best. You got the most points, so you get 2 balls in the bag, and when you go down, and so you're drawing out for now I'm the 8th seed, but so I don't know. There's got to be a way to make
that would not work near. Then the regular season really doesn't matter because it's like
Yeah.
like what am I going to be?
Well, no, it does. No, it does.
top
It
8
does because the more points you get, the more opportunity you get to draw the more you're drawing, your number goes in the bag more times than
Okay,
the others.
100%. But then the 32nd team in the league still gets a ball in there, and then they draw, and they're in the playoffs.
No. I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying if you qualified, you finished within the top 8 in your conference, then you get a shot at it. You get a shot at being the 1 seed, and So I don't know. Just trying to.
I mean,
I like the merit.
If
I
it's-
like it based off of merit.
because it really just all comes down to home ice advantage. Like
Mhm,
that would really be the biggest thing. And with some teams, it's something that they strive, because some teams work to it as well, to where it's like, hey, we want to push. We know how good we are on home ice. Like if we can finish top of the league, then we can secure home ice the whole playoff. And then what's stopping us at that point? But I think that's part of the motivation too. I think I like the way that it is currently, just for the fact of stories you look at, St. Louis in 2019. How far out of a playoff spot were they
We're in
in
last place in
December?
like January.
I think they were the last
Yeah.
place in January or something like that. They go on a tear. They end up winning the cup. They win it all. That would get rid of that a bit because, they would at a certain point, maybe they just give up because if, the kind of like Kyle was, or I think what Kyle was saying was about, the 1-2 seed being locked up basically, or that might have been Dad, but
Yeah.
just that locked up, maybe they lose motivation to push and try and make playoffs because they're like, man, there's already, there's 2 less seats at the table, so we got to fist fight these 2 guys for it basically. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It changes those because you love to hear those kind of
Mhm.
stories. And then even with Nashville last year, the same thing. They were, doing pretty bad, and then they canceled that U2 concert that they were supposed to go to in Vegas, and they end up going on a tear and making the playoffs. And,
They need
so
to go
I
to
don't know if
U2
that's what will
again.
happen with them this year, but
I was gonna
it
say,
was
yeah,
really
schedule
cool.
another concert.
Yeah, let's see how all
Yeah,
they
they
gotta do
need
is
to cancel
God
something.
schedule a
damn.
concert.
Yeah.
Cancel a dinner
That
party.
part
Do
would be
something.
gone, but again, it is what it is.
Yeah. So, hey, we probably just spent 10 minutes of wasted time talking about
Oh,
playoff changes
nothing's
because there's
gonna
nothing.
happen.
I
It's
mean,
just fun.
No, it's not
nothing's
gonna
going to
happen.
happen. But, at the same time, it's going to get talked about. People are going to talk about it, and people are going to want something different, because it's like anything.
Well, that's why they
You
did
guys know.
the 4 nations this year
Yeah.
instead of the All-Star game, which I think is a great change, by the way.
That change
Yeah.
needs to
No.
continue to happen. I think
I
that
agree.
needs to
I
be the
think
way it
that's,
goes forward.
again, you're adding a log on the fire. You're creating that animosity that people
Mhm.
want. They want to see rivalries. They want to see because guys they'll give everything to win something for their country.
Oh, yeah.
Especially a lot of the European guys. They're like the Finnish guys and obviously and the Swedish guys. They're just all about I want to win it for Sweden
Mhm.
or for Finland or even the Canadian and US guys are the same way.
One,
It gives a chance to play
Yeah.
with other players too. You still see the best of the
yeah.
best. Other than the Russian guys, kind of, I don't know if that's ever going to happen,
So
or if they'll throw in a couple more
that
teams.
was that was
But
gonna be my
if they did, Russia would be the top of
yeah.
that list. There needs to be a Russian team for
That was
sure.
gonna be my kind of my other point too. Is like because it's owned by the NHL, they're gonna be way more willing because the owners are probably gonna get some sort of compensation for loaning their players out. Because the NHL is going to be making this revenue back. It's going to be probably an owner share. They're going to make some money off of it, which is good because that's way. The issue we keep running into is the owners are like, why am I going to take the risk sending my guy to the Olympics and I'm going to see squat from it? And yeah, it's kind of
Or the All-Star game.
it's a messed up
Any one of those two, yeah.
business model. You're holding somebody back from achieving a dream. Maybe their dream is to win the Olympic gold. You're holding them back from doing that because you don't want them to get hurt because that's your monetary value. But in all reality, it would, if Alex Ovechkin is out, maybe Caps fans don't go to as many games because they want to go see Ovechkin, or that's probably a terrible team to use. But here, Pittsburgh, if Crosby's out, there's probably less
Yeah.
fans there than there already are because everybody's going to go see Sidney Crosby.
Or
It's like, what was that?
Or McDavid.
Yeah, McDavid, perfect example. Yeah, like people go to see these players, and so it does make sense that they are not going to just send them away when they're not seeing any monetary gain from it. And this being owned by the NHL then all of a sudden gives them the monetary gain where it's like they're going to get some compensation back for it. I like the way this is set up because it's going to induce competitive hockey. The All-Star game is not competitive. It's fun. I think it's fun every 5 years. An All-Star game would be fun where it's like you do some wacky skills competition. It's way more relaxed. Every other year in between, do some sort of international thing. I think we keep adding more teams to it. Invite other team players, because like Czechia would need players from other leagues to come over, but make it a big event, make it like a big spectacle where you're going to be on NHL arenas. It's going to be a big stage, like make it that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden those players might be more willing. The teams might be more willing to send them over for publicity for it.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And like I said, but they have to start adding new stuff to the mix to
100%,
make it
yeah.
fresh, to keep it fresh. Because I think if they don't change the playoffs, then these things are going to absolutely have to continue to happen. Because if they don't, you're going to lose interest, you're going to lose viewership, and the NHL doesn't want to do
Well,
that.
we
So
say that, but
we'll
baseball's
see.
up, and they've had the same playoff format forever.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
that's different
It's
though.
I mean,
I think that's different,
I don't
honestly.
know.
I mean,
It's tough to say, and you know, I feel like, but I feel like baseball really that's one of those sports that it really doesn't matter until
nope.
it matters. No one really watches. I mean, I guess their numbers might be okay or
They're
decent,
up
but
as of late because they actually sped
right,
the games up, which has been the biggest thing.
that's been the biggest. And we're gonna go way off the tangents here, but that was the best thing they did for baseball was add that
100%.
pitch timer. Now again, it's to the detriment of the pitchers because they're like, well, I'm gonna
So
be
many
throwing
injuries.
so much more
Mhm.
frequently. Not necessarily numbers wise, but just faster, and that could impact how they get injured, how long they can play, salary, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm big fan of that. So there are changes that they've made, and I think the NHL can make those changes. They're trying to. I think the Four Nations is the
It's
first
a
step
beautiful start. Yeah.
forward. It's a good
Yep.
step forward because the All-Star game. I mean, when was the last time the All-Star game was good? That's another.
It's pointless. It's
I
pointless,
mean,
honestly.
maybe like for me, but again, it might have just been because I was a kid. But like back in from '05 to 2010,
I
maybe
think
it was it
you
was
know where I
cool.
think it
But
turned? It was Montreal, the year Ovi did the 2 stick and he had the
yeah,
glasses on and the hat. That was when the All-Star game that was the last year where it was like,
that was I wanted to watch it.
this is
Yeah,
enjoyable. Yes, this is
yeah,
fun. And then ever
maybe.
since then, it's been just awful.
I know. I don't know.
Yeah. So, anyways, so okay. We're at about the 3 minute mark from our 1 hour 1 hour
Mhm.
mark. So we'll table that one because we're not sure exactly what's going to happen if nothing. But if nothing, nothing will
We know
happen. I'm
nothing's
quite
gonna
honestly
happen.
sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We'll stamp that one. But we're going to talk about it nonetheless. So anyway, so we're heading into the Christmas break after tonight's game, and then after that we'll come back. We got a back-to-back with New Jersey, two important games for us, and I think hopefully the boys come back and set the tone we'll call it 8 really important Metro Division
Yeah, I
points.
was gonna say this could be a massive 8-point swing. Like Carolina comes out and they take 2 against New Jersey. It could be a massive push forward into taking ownership of the Metro. Now Washington's gonna have something to say about that, but hopefully they start dropping
Oh yeah,
points. I don't know. I I want to ask one more question kind of before we do wrap up, but I'll leave my notes on the New Jersey one with it's going to be a tough game. They're such a fast team. You have to control their speed through the neutral zone, and if you're able to control them through the neutral zone, you can take advantage of areas. We did it in game 1 that we played against them, so it's just kind of a rinse and repeat, and just make sure that we're gapping up. Don't let Jack Hughes or Jesper Bratt get too much speed. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
yeah. No, I agreed, 100%. We got to get in their face early and often in their own
Yep.
zone, and don't allow them to transition because as all three of us know very well that the Canes are not a great transition team, or we don't defend well against a transition team. And if we start let them go, man, I tell you, they're really dangerous. We watched them today, and they picked apart the
Well,
Rangers.
so
So
is
so we'll
everybody,
see what
but
happens.
I mean, it was
So
not close. It was crazy. Yeah, but the Canes will be. I think they'll play. I think they'll play fine, even though you know the Devils kind of got like a warm up game today. So it's yeah. I mean they gotta play the neutral zone. That's the biggest part.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
O
We have
zone,
to
D
stop.
zone matter, but that neutral zone, man. Whoever owns every game I watch, it's whoever owns the neutral
Mhm.
zone. If they own the neutral zone, they win the game.
Most important
Like
zone in
almost
hockey.
every single game you watch, it doesn't matter shot total, shot attempts, whatever. If you own the neutral zone, I mean, the game's yours to
Yeah.
lose if you're owning that at that
Yeah.
point.
One final question, and I haven't made my full decision on it yet. Do we really think Washington's the real deal? Like they've come out of their rebuild, they've come out of their retool, and this is a cup contending Washington Capitals team.
I don't know if I want to say with a very guarded yes, but I think they've played well enough with a younger crew, and with the defensive core that they have. I think last week, Cameron mentioned adding Jacob Chikrin. He was a huge add on the backside. He's on their power play. He really adds a dimension to their game that they were missing. They have John Carlson, don't get me wrong, but he was it. I mean, they had, Nick or whatever his name was. They had a couple of other guys there, but he adds a dimension. And then up front, like I said, they're big, they're heavy, they're in your face all the time.
Yeah, they're a playoff
And Carberry's really done a nice job of getting those guys moving. And the biggest thing is they got goaltending. They absolutely have goaltending. They haven't had goaltending in probably 3 or 4
Since
years.
Holtby. I mean, since
of
Holtby, yeah.
consistent.
Since
consistent
Holtby, they
goal.
haven't had consistent. I mean, Holtby was he led him to the cup in 2018. So
Yeah.
he was the guy forever.
And Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren, they are absolutely 1A, 1B.
Funniest thing is we saw the worst of the two goalies in that game against us.
Yeah, somehow we saw the worst of the two.
We saw the lesser of the two evils in that game.
Yeah, I think they're legit.
Yeah,
I think
so. So I think Kyle, yes, I'll say guarded because you don't know until you get into the later part of the season.
There's an experience aspect to play.
They got younger guys, so that's why I'm guarded, because the younger guys, once you get into that February, March grind, do they still perform at that elite level? Do they still have that ability to do that? And I think that's what's to be determined for them. But they are, in my opinion, they're close to being the real deal at this point.
I base it off of last year. I mean, just they got trounced in the first round of playoffs, and I'm like, not much. I mean, stuff has definitely changed to the team. They added definitely some good pieces, especially goaltending. That was a massive add. They had Lindgren last year, though, so he was their goalie in playoffs. It's like, yes, they made changes. Chikrin, big pickup. Who else? I know they added a couple other guys, and names aren't coming to my head. But
the biggest thing was Logan Thompson and Jacob Chikrin. Yeah. I think those are the two biggest adds they made. Now,
definitely biggest two. But no, I just feel like the identity of the team is so polar opposite from what we saw in playoffs, and maybe that's just Carberry's system having another year of marination into the brains of these players. Of just that's what it is. But I don't know. I struggle with it because it's like, they clawed their way back into playoffs last year, and they kind of went on the run that they're going on right now. But the first half of the year was god awful. It's like, is that going to be the same with this year? Is the second half of the year not going to be as good? It's just until, I guess, it's an up in the air until they prove it one way or the other. But I mean, from what I've seen, when they're playing at their best, they're a good hockey club. I said good team.
I don't know who beats them.
What was it?
It's hard to see a team that when they're going full.
When they're going, yeah.
Who beats
Florida?
Them? That's what scares me.
Florida.
I mean, I think they go toe to toe.
They 100% go toe to toe with Florida. The difference is that Florida has a fucking unicorn in Matthew Tkachuk who can literally do anything on the ice that you need him to do. Yeah. And it's like they're very, 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 very few. I call them I know Chicklets calls them a unicorn too, but like it's a perfect word for him. It's like it's him and his brother. Those are the only two guys that can really do it. And Matthew's just the better version of his brother. Like he's genuinely a one-of-one player. And it's like whoever has him is just, it's like Patrick Mahomes in the NFL. He's just a difference maker, especially in playoffs.
Yeah. I guess, but before he won, the cup, obviously, we were looking at him kind of in the same light of that this Protus guy could be,
That's fair.
Or McMichael.
Fair.
So
I don't know.
The only reason I bring that up is because it was just a year ago. If we were looking at ourselves a year before the last season, you would have said, "Yeah, he's good, but he hasn't won it yet." And that's kind of the big roadblock with a lot of these guys, where they go from a really good, solid player to one of the greats is the hardware.
The one thing with Tkachuk,
that's a big thing for Washington. If they can establish that hardware with a 1-year kind of retool, I mean,
it's great.
Hats off to Carberry and the ownership. I mean, they did a great job.
100%. Last thing with Tkachuk is that the one thing that he has that I don't think any other player has as well too is he has an ability to get under players' skin like I've never seen out of another player. His ability to
like Marchand.
What?
Yeah, it's that Marchand
Yes,
mentality.
Marshawn is
It's
probably
that.
the only other one where I've seen it, but, like, his ability to take a player completely off his game, that's where it's like, he's just got every piece. That's where it's like,
Yeah.
Protest can 100% probably do the physical things that Matthew Tkachuk can, but the mental mind games that Tkachuk plays with you, it wears on players. It wears on 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know if he has the sort of the chirp factor built into his DNA like Matthew
It's not
Tkachuk
even a
does, because
chirp, it's a
he's
mental warfare with that.
well, no, I get it, but
He doesn't really draw
it's a
that much.
language
He just
thing, and
goes
it's
out there
just
and
like,
plays right on the
he's
edge.
got it down pat, no doubt.
He does, yeah.
So anyways, well, we're just north of the 1 hour mark, so we'll unless you guys have anything to add, we're gonna wrap for the week and get everybody, speeding on into the holiday break here, and we'll come back to you guys next week. But we do thank you guys for hanging in there if you did. And if you like the program, please do subscribe. It helps get us pushing more content in the right direction for you. So like us on all of our social media platforms, Instagram, X, and anything else out there. I think, Kyle, am I missing any? I don't think I am.
That was
So
good.
anyways, but happy holidays to everybody. And hopefully the Canes have a good break, regroup, and coming into it with a good stretch here. And we'll see how they do against New Jersey with some really important games after the Christmas holidays. So, but for Cam, Kyle, and myself, we'll wish you guys a Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you next week.